Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis. I'm Michael Morris with Staniel Willis. Stan, how are you?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
I'm good. I only bring you the best and brightest from the headlines. So today I want to talk about this defense from Theranos. Now, for people that are not aware of Theranos, it was a blood draw. It was a company that was going to create a box, which I always think is the best idea for an entrepreneur. It's a box, and it would draw blood from your finger rather than have to draw it from your veins and all that.
Is there money in box creation?
I would just say there's money in box and leave it at that.
So maybe I should invest in a box company, or what are you telling me here?
I think the best thing to do, well, I wouldn't invest $20 billion like people did, but box is always popular.
So you heard it here, folks. Invest in boxes.
Why would you say that on the show when they can watch and hear us and now they're going to take our idea? Wait a minute. We can patent that.
Sure.
We have a lawyer here that can patent that.
I don't really. Okay.
Allegedly.
So
the issue with Theranos was it was a company that could not pull off. It was a Silicon Valley company that could not pull off what they said they were going to do. So they kept delaying and delaying actually showing the item. Elizabeth Holmes, I got it right because I told Stan I was going to say Elizabeth Warren. And
death threat Elizabeth.
Yeah, just say Liz.
Could it be Elizabeth Shue?
If it was Elizabeth Shue, I would invest money in it. She was amazing in that movie with Nick Cage about leaving Las Vegas.
Leaving Las Vegas.
That'll be our second show we're going to do today. Just a movie review of Elizabeth Shue.
Okay.
Oh my God. That's our new show. But the issue being her defense in the beginning was she had Stockholm Syndrome because her boyfriend worked at the company. Mm-hmm. And now it's changed to their defense is #MeToo, that he was verbally, physically abusive to her at work and at home. And he wasn't forthcoming about the financials. Why I question this is in California, it seems to be every wacky lawsuit happens there. And in Florida, every redneck thing happens, right? So if we take the law piece of this, you have to tell me as the lawyer, do you see this as a groundbreaking case if they win? Because she faces 20 years in prison, I think $20 million if she's found guilty.
It's a creative defense, I'd say, but it's not without precedent. I mean, everybody's the famous Patricia Hearst case,
right,
from the 70s, where they came across the Stockholm Syndrome and all those kinds of things. I mean, if you're alleging abuse and that I went along with this because I was being abused and so I was trapped and it's not really my fault. Really, there's two things that you're going to have to consider in that. There's two things you have to think about in that kind of a defense. The first is proof, right. Because you're probably not going to have tons and tons of evidence, unless she was actually physically abused and calling the ambulance
or had pictures of it, right?
Right.
But if it's stern emails,
even with pictures. Sometimes with pictures, everybody thinks, well, I'll just take this picture and it'll be fine. But pictures require testimony for context. So I could have a picture of my arm with a huge bruise on it, and all you can really get from that picture is I had a bruise on my arm. Or
like, look how sculpted your arm is. So there's two ways it could go.
Right. But then, with Photoshop and with all that stuff, or with makeup, you could actually make it look like a bruise on your arm. So in order for the picture to be relevant, the person has to testify about it. And so that ends up being still my word against your word. So pictures are somewhat, they're very persuasive, but they're not necessarily probative, in the sense that they don't necessarily prove anything. They still have to have testimony in order to back those things up.
But the other part I'm wondering about that is that if that's what you're going to say, you were being abused at home and at work, I find it hard to buy into that when you're on the cover of Forbes magazine and Times magazine or Times magazine.
Well, it could be Times magazine.
I should have said Sheaths, but which is still a funny word.
Multiple times, like there are several Times magazines.
Let's assume she was on.
Or is it the magazine owned by Time? Because
but is Time just a construct? How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go with that?
It could be. It's at least something that we use to measure things. Right?
It's like it's Spaceballs. When will then be now?
Right.
Soon.
Well, think about this. You can never be there, but you're always here. Just saying.
That's the deepest thing that's ever been said on YouTube.
I know. So when you get there, you're actually still here.
You're more of a guru. You're like my Sherpa here. You're not an attorney.
Well, I get a lot of that. It's because of the hair.
Well, speaking of the guy that she dated looked like a Sherpa. I can't remember his name and I can't pronounce it. Sunny, let's just call it Day, because it's not an American name.
Okay.
What I'm curious about is, like you said, you could have documentation that you need people to testify to this.
Uh-huh.
Can you claim a Stockholm Syndrome or an abuse syndrome when you're being honored by Hillary Clinton and John McCain and people like you're being set up to be one of the leaders of the world? How do you prove that you were going through something drastic?
So you would have to submit to psychological evaluation. So first of all, you're probably going to need a psychologist or a psychiatrist to come in and testify, yeah, she has this problem. This actually was beyond her control, and here's why. And then you're going to have other psychologists who are going to come in and evaluate you, and they're going to be working for the prosecution or for the other side. So they're going to try to poke holes in all those theories. It would be a very difficult thing to prove. It
seems like a muddied idea that's harder to disprove, but it doesn't prove your innocence either.
Right. But remember, the standard in criminal prosecution is beyond reasonable doubt. So it's a very high standard, and the burden is on the prosecution to prove that. So, I mean, ultimately, if you can just prove a little bit of doubt, right?
Well, it's kind of like the OJ thing, right?
Exactly.
I don't have to prove he's innocent. I just can't convict him because he did it.
I just have to prove that he might not have done it.
No, but he did it. I don't know if he watches this, but he killed those people.
Somebody certainly did.
Yeah. Wore Bruno Malley shoes. I mean, what are the chances that those gloves, first of all, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, did you ever see that documentary, that 30 for 30 about OJ?
Yes, I saw that.
Where the guy said he stopped taking his arthritis medication and his hands swelled up like Nate's ass, and that's why he couldn't get the gloves on. Uh-huh. Nate, will you put a picture of your ass in here when you edit this? Yeah, I have some on my phone if you want them, but I took them. But if he said he knew those gloves wouldn't go on his hands, right? So all I have to do is prove enough that you're not guilty. What I don't know is how you're going to prove over 500 instances of wire fraud, financial documents, how you're going to get out of that. Because it seems like a very high school defense. I wouldn't have done it if my friend wasn't smoking. I wouldn't be in here in the bathroom smoking either. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, I guess it kind of is that thing. I mean, essentially what she's saying is that, the influence of this person was so overwhelming that I could no longer control my actions, that my actions were actually being controlled by this other person. Right. And that's essentially what you're saying. That's the Stockholm Defense. That's all those things, is that, I was so, the situation was so egregious that I didn't actually have my own volition.
Right.
I mean, that's what you're saying. And so to prove that, I mean, that's a pretty high standard of things to be able, or of something to be able to prove. I'm not saying that it's not something that will work or won't work. I'm just saying it would be a very difficult defense. I
just think this is going to get to the point where it's going to get muddied. And I think the prosecution is going to say, okay, let's settle this somewhere in the middle. Maybe she does 10 years, pays $10 million, whatever it might be, because again, I think this is,
essentially it's the same as, I come into your house, I hand you a gun. I say, shoot Nate.
God,
it's a bad idea. You might enjoy that.
Let's just stop there. I'm already on board with this.
But I say, shoot Nate. And then I bring your daughter in and I put a gun to her head and I say, if you don't shoot Nate, I'm going to shoot your daughter. I mean, that's essentially the kind of duress that you're claiming, only you're claiming it from a physical abuser, or in the Stockholm case, you're claiming it from a kidnapper or a terrorist or something like that.
How do you prove mental abuse is the question. I know that you're not a psychologist, but I like to tell other people to do their life. So I assume I would be able to figure it out. Mm-hmm. how could she prove that she, because again, you're talking about a decade, right? Mm-hmm. A decade of this happening. How do you as an attorney figure that out to present that? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I guess you would have to have a lot of questions about the interaction that they had, and then you would have to get a psychologist or a psychiatrist to listen to all the stories of interaction. Excuse me. You'd have to, at some level, be able to document some of this stuff. So you'd have to bring in friends and family members who could say, oh, yeah, this is the way that their relationship worked. And, you know, when he would look at her like this, then she would immediately... I mean, you have to be able to document some of the. You have to be able to support some of the things that you're claiming in this situation, and then ultimately you just have to put it out there and have an expert. I mean, it comes down to expert testimony. It's the same. It's the same as like medical conditions. I mean, I'm an attorney. I can't prove whether or not you actually had cancer or whether you actually can't use your left arm. I can't prove those things. I have to bring a doctor in who's going to say, well, yeah, here are the tests that we ran, here are the things that we did, and this is what the result of that is. It proves that this functionality is not there, or this thing's not there. And so it's the same from a mental standpoint. The problem is that most people can identify more readily with physical issues than with mental issues.
Right.
And so when you look at a mental issue, or somebody's claiming some kind of a mental issue as an excuse for something, we all get a bit more incredulous, right? We all start thinking, oh, you can control that. You know?
Well, it's kind of like the Son of Sam defense.
Right.
A dog is talking to him.
Right.
If you're going to go down that path, then you need to be committed. Mm-hmm. Because essentially, if this is proven this way, she's got mental issues that she's got to resolve. So it's more of a therapy thing.
It's not purely an insanity defense. It's not the same thing.
No, but I'm saying you are claiming that she wasn't in her right mind, though.
Right, but with an insanity defense, it works a little differently. Because with an insanity defense, you're not claiming that you should be absolved of your behavior because of your mental state. You're claiming that you can't stand trial, or that you are so insane that the punishment for this action shouldn't be that. So if you present the insanity defense, if you're successful, what you end up doing is spending the rest of your life in a psych ward where they try to cure you or mitigate your insanity.
And on day one, she's like, nah, I'm cool. Yeah, I figured it out on the drive over.
But you never get out of those things. And if the decision was that that you can't mentally stand trial, if that's the decision, then if you get cured, you go back and stand trial. So,
I see.
So the insanity defense isn't the magic wand that everybody thinks. You still end up incarcerated with.
It works on TV.
That. Well, yeah, it works on TV.
Are you saying what you see on TV isn't true?
I'm saying that it's very well scripted.
Are you talking about the news or the TV shows?
Yes.
You're welcome. So in this case, why I think that this is odd is I've read a lot about this case that was pending, because they literally sat her down for 3 hours, and her answer to everything, she didn't take the fifth, was, I don't know. Like, even, is your name this? I don't know. So I thought she was going for an insanity defense because of the money that was owed, not the prison time. So they kind of have three different people. She's standing trial, Sunny Day. I know that's not his name, but who cares? He's going to prison. And then another person that was involved in this operation. But beyond this part, this is people buying into Silicon Valley, right? This could happen again. So if it's these tech startups, which again, as Nate says, are CIA front operations, but that's his opinion. He didn't really say that CIA, so stop watching and looking at his phone. But it sets a precedent that somebody else could now say, well, this startup was going really well, except Stan got involved and he abused me mentally, right? Because there's large sums of money. I'm like
that, so.
Well, you are like that, and that's why we're not starting this box company. I'm going to do it on my own.
You're not in with me, man?
Listen, you just said that you're a scandalous person and that you're not a doctor. We need a doctor on staff.
I'm very trustworthy, as far as you know.
You know who says that? People that are liars say that. You could totally trust me.
I'm not an alcoholic.
See, there you go. Double lies. what is your feeling when you look at these startup companies just from a consumer? Do you ever look at it and you're like, what even is that? Because there doesn't seem to be legal recourse when these things go poorly, partners sue partners and all that.
Well,
but investors always get screwed.
Well, and typically, I mean, it's a commercial transaction. You assume that it's what they call an arm's length transaction. So you assuming that as an investor, it's the caveat emptor thing, let the buyer beware kind of thing that kind of rules in our world. You can't scam somebody, but if I tell you that I'm going to go develop a mechanical goat that will mow your lawn for you, and
keep talking.
See, and if you decide, yeah, that sounds like a good investment, but you don't do any kind of background on me, or you don't do any kind of research on the product or what's going on, you just kind of blindly throw money at it, then our system kind of says, well, you're stupid and you lost money. But if I know that the mechanical grass-eating goat cannot be developed when I'm selling it to you, I'm now committing fraud. And so, but the thing is that if I suspect that it may not be able to be developed, but I'm going to work really, really hard to develop it, that's probably not fraud. And it's a very fine distinction.
Because you can't prove intent, right? I can't. Well, I can prove you're scamming me out of money, but I can't prove that you're not, that this idea can't happen.
Right. Well, and so in most of these, correct, fraud is a specific intent crime. So what that means is that if I'm going to defraud you, I have to have the intention when I start to take money from you and not provide any, to defraud you. I have to have that intention when I start. And it can come along at some time, but a lot of these startups, I think that with a lot of them, the person who comes up with the idea actually thinks it's possible.
Right.
I think it's possible to be able to, teleport like they did in Star Trek. I think I can develop.
I would invest in that if you could teleport from box to box.
Right. But if you invest in that, if you throw all of your tens of billions of dollars, because you have those.
Well, look at the way that I'm dressed, of course.
I could tell. And Orioles. I mean, seriously, man, Orioles. Anyway,
everybody says that 1983 champs. Go on. Speak to it. Man, Speak to it right now.
Except for Cal Ripken, nobody would care about the Orioles.
Oh, God, this hurts me at my soul. Why do I do this shit?
Wait, didn't Bob Uecker play for the Orioles?
No, he played for the Cardinals, Brewers, and Atlanta.
Okay.
He wasn't good enough to play for the Orioles. He could play today, and he's 84. he could start today. But I want to ask you something specific.
What they had with the Orioles and Michael Jackson have in common, right?
What's that?
Both wear one glove for no apparent reason. So anyway, just saying.
We need another lawyer on the State and Willis show. What I want to ask you is this, because you said somebody that touts an idea. How does it affect it when they had John McCain, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, all stumping and saying this was the future, right? Mm-hmm. So what research, because you said you'd have to look into this yourself.
Right.
You would think if all these great minds, whatever, are touting this thing, that this is a sound investment, as though they did their research.
Right. It's the car salesman thing, though. It's totally the car salesman thing. If I'm trying to sell you a car, as long as I don't make specific representations, I can say, this is the best dang car I've ever had on my lot. I can say that because that may be true. It's a subjective statement, right?
It's my opinion, though.
Right. You can say, she's a beauty. You can say, I'd buy this car and give it to my daughter if I could afford it. I mean, you can say all this stuff. What you can't say is, oh, I guarantee you that the engine will last for 10 more years. You can't say that. Right? But you can say a lot of things about this car trying to sell it to someone that may not be true, but they are subjective. So you're allowed to say them. It's called puffing.
Right.
And so you're allowed as a salesperson to be puffing. So if you're a politician and somebody's, contributing to your campaign maybe, or they're going to vote for you, or they're supporting you in some other way. If you go out and say, hey, I love this guy and I love this product that he has, it's great, you should look into it, I'm doing nothing wrong.
Well, who's experienced a lot of puffing because we mentioned Bill Clinton, and I think that this is all tied
we're
together.
We're going to talk about puffing.
I'm just saying that I understand the tie-in now. That's all I meant. I just think it's hard when, if you believe, first of all, you should never trust your government or any leaders, whatever. That's Stan saying that. Or the Orioles. They're going to, I'm telling you, 2035 is going to be their year. But when somebody that you believe in starts endorsing, not endorsing it like in a commercial, but this is a viable thing and it's going to change the world works. That's when I think you as a consumer get pulled into this. Like, of course I'm going to invest in it, because the person I look at and I think knows what they're doing they're on board.
So when you see a member of the Blue Jackets on a commercial touting a particular jewelry store, or
I know to stay away because the Blue Jackets don't pay anybody worth a shit. So I know they can't even afford to go there either.
No, I'm just saying, but when you see that, I mean, that this person, sorry about that, Nathan. I just bumped the microphone.
Just edit the microphone out.
So when you see that, you go, hey, maybe I should go shop there, right? Because so-and-so might be shopping there, or so-and-so trusts them, or whatever. It's part of, I mean, there's nothing, that person is doing nothing illegal. That store is doing nothing illegal. This is completely legal within our system. They can go in there and say all these things, and they're essentially endorsing these people. But if one of those places turns out to be crooks who are doing fraudulent things, as long as the person doing the endorsement does not have specific knowledge of that, it's fine.
Right. But I'm just saying, again, that's the part where when you were saying, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying the general public has a 5th grade education, and they are literally looking.
It might be
well,
high.
I'm just saying, I'm only counting the 50 states we know of.
Nate, did you get a 5th grade? No.
I
see, Nathan didn't get through 5th grade, and I think Nathan's well above average.
I do too, but he's dating a girl in the 10th grade. They're going to homecoming. But where I have my problem with this is, again, when I see these big public figures attached to a company.
Chick, The old, you might be a redneck if
he did move to California. I think they booted him out because he was like the Beverly Hillbillies. They're like, get your degree, get on out of here, so you can do stupid podcasts in somebody's den. Apparently, that we're in
somebody's den. Hey, this is a conference room. This is a.
I'm okay with it, but why
this
can't
is a beautiful conference room?
Can't we get some decoration of like a moose head or something?
Ooh,
I want to turn this into like a law lodge.
I like that. So we should do like. Yeah, I think.
Well, because people are just looking at these dumb outlets right here. Whatever this is supposed to be.
Those aren't outlets. So there was a speaker that was attached there at one point.
So you took it down for this show?
We took it. It's a long story. Do you really want to go into all this?
Not on this show. We can do it after the show. I'm sorry, it just caught my attention that if people understood what the building was that we're in.
So we are currently upstairs in our building, where this space up here, this upstairs space, housed our whole firm for about 4 years. And so we grew so much that we moved into the downstairs space, which is bigger. But now we're growing so much, we have taken back over the upstairs space. So I'm not completely finished with
You have just described why people wear sweatpants. You're expanding at a rate you can't keep up with.
There you go. Well, we can keep up with it. We are keeping up with it.
I mean,
very
business-wise.
well. Yeah,
but like I walked...
We're killing it. We're killing it, man.
Let me tell you what I told Nate, that there's so many new faces when I see him that when I walked in, I wasn't going to say we were here to do the podcast. I was going to say, can I see Stan Willis? I'm his son and he doesn't know about me, to just see if they would call you. But now you're on the 2nd floor and I don't even know where everybody is. So I had to give it away, Nate, but I'm telling you, I'm still going to pull it. Did you ever
consider that maybe I was hiding from you?
I can find you. I just have to go down and take a left at the Bear Paw or whatever's down here.
Bear Paw?
Looks like a big log cabin.
It does.
That's why I love it here.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love our offices. Shout out to Equity Investments. That's our landlord.
You gave a shout out to the real estate group?
That's our landlord.
Shout out to Monster Energy Drink for keeping us going.
They're great
and
people.
Looking at hooks on the wall because there's nothing there. In summary,
I'll make sure that we take this down before we videotape in here.
Leave them because I'm going to start decorating that with my own stuff when we get in here.
No, I'm taking those suckers down, man. They're coming down.
See, the law firm's falling apart. He's already trying to sell the things on the wall. Let's summarize real quick.
Those are worth millions. Seriously, millions.
If John McCain was here, or the ghost of John McCain, he would say they're worth millions.
I think that you should invest in those.
I already started a box company with Nate. We took the idea.
Oh, man.
I just want, in summary, because we're running out of time.
We're running out of time.
If that defense, and I know it hasn't played out yet, what is your thoughts on that? Do you think that she's going to skate? I think that we should make a $20 bet.
Okay.
I'll loan you the $20 if you don't have it.
Okay.
The $20 bet is they're going to meet in the middle.
40?
First of all, you haven't even lost this bet yet. But when you do, I think that they're going to settle somewhere in the middle, and she's going to do 7 to 10 years. But she has young kids at home, and I think she's going to say, "Put me on house arrest."
I bet she gets. I bet she gets some sort of probation, and
you know what I just said. You can't take my. If we have a bet, you can't bet the same thing.
You said 7 years
on house arrest.
Oh, it won't be house arrest. It won't be anything.
They're going to just let her wander around.
We don't really do that. She'll have some sort of probation with some sort of reporting requirement, and probably community service and.
How do you feel knowing a criminal is going to get off?
When wealthy people get community service, they don't have to wear the orange jumpsuits and walk around on the street.
It's disgusting.
Different things.
It's disgusting because
I probably have to. She might be counting votes or something. So,
you can't say.
Did I say that?
You can't say that our voting system is rigged. It's rigged.
I didn't say that.
I didn't say that you did.
That.
He said that.
I never said that. I never said that. I never made any implication as that, because if I did that, I would be on the watch list and be a terrorist, and I'm not a terrorist.
Well, you're going to be on the watch list because you're just shady.
I am kind of shady.
I think that's a good way to summarize this whole show.
It's shady.
Yeah, you're shady as hell. You've been listening to Objections with Stan Willis, and we'll see you next week.